Good morning, everybody. We are at 9. But again, good morning. Obviously, very excited to welcome the RE/MAX Anchor and RE/MAX Affinity Plus agents, not only to this meeting, but to our company. 1 week ago, we had our announcement at the Sunseeker Resort to the Punta Gorda and Northport agents right around this time, 10 o'clock. And then we went down and made a similar announcement to the Marco Island office. And so we are super excited, super invigorated based on the response that we received from everyone. It's been incredibly positive, and that's always one of the benefits of these types of mergers is we expand our marketplace, we expand our footprint. I will tell you, Marco will be certainly our southernmost that we will go. And we have established our northernmost with Spring Hill and Lutz in that general vicinity. And so we feel that we have a strong presence up and down the west coast of Florida now. And again, very excited to do that. As an owner, Ron and I are thrilled to do this. This is important for the overall health of our company. It's good to see this kind of growth in a positive with different MLSs and associations and that type of thing. So again, our staff, I want to thank, they have worked very hard behind the scenes. I ask a lot of everyone when we do something like this. It's not just a flip of a pen. It's a lot of work that goes into it. And I'm very thankful for everybody and super excited about, again, the talent that we've added to our team is awesome, and look forward to working with everyone. Detail. Dave and Roger and a few others were at the mid-year meetings in Orlando for Florida Realtors. So I know they have some things, particularly Dave has some things to share with you from that meeting. And overall, again, I'm glad to say from an overall market standpoint, things are noticeably picking up from a showing standpoint, which is always, again, the barometer for future contracts, in my opinion, and it's always proven out that way. Clearly, we've seen listings tick up in a meaningful way, but that does not have to be a bad thing. It's a good time to accumulate good listings and again, get ourselves prepared for this hopefully busier selling season that's upon us and going to be in full swing here shortly. So with that, I'm going to turn it. I think Dan was not able to make the meeting today. So from a mortgage standpoint, not too much has changed. Obviously, a lot of volatility in the stock market with all of the talks about trade tariffs. That should usually drive rates down, but just because of the absolute back and forth of it, it really didn't have that effect. Rates have not come down in any meaningful way. They're staying stubbornly high. The 10-year, again, not bouncing back as much as it would under normal market pullbacks like we saw yesterday. So keep an eye on that. Dan will update us on that next go round from a more technical standpoint. But again, that's what we'll keep our eye on, because we certainly want to see that rate creep down just from a buyer confidence standpoint. Dave, I'm going to swing it directly to you because Dan's not here. So go ahead and take over from here, if you will.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. And I'm excited to come back from the Florida midwinter meetings. A lot of my meeting presentation today are going to be slides that I've received from that presentation to bring you up to date. But I've got some other things in here as well. So one of the changes that came in and went into effect in July of last year was House Bill 1203. And House Bill 1203 affects homeowners associations and their abilities to prevent people from parking on their driveways, or preventing individuals who are not on a list with the association or don't have a license to be able to show from entering into the community. This is a very interesting bill. And for some of you, I've gotten inquiries from some of our agents who sit on boards where they enforce no parking in your driveway. You must park in your garage, or you must park off site. So if you look at this, I've circled here, homeowner associations may not preclude a property owner, even a tenant, a guest, or an invitee of the property owner from parking their personal vehicle, including a pickup truck, on the owner's driveway or any other area of the property where the tenants and guests and invitees have a right to park as governed by state, county, and municipal regulations. Homeowner association documents, including declaration of covenants, articles of incorporation, bylaws, may not prohibit, regardless of any official insignia, designation, a property owner, a tenant, a guest, or an invitee of a property owner from parking his or her vehicle, which is not a commercial vehicle. It can be a truck, but not necessarily, a big commercial vehicle. This goes on to say that you can't prevent the entry of a contractor or worker to the owner's property solely because they are not on a preferred vendor list of the association. They may not preclude an owner invitee from hiring to enter into the community a contractor or worker based solely on the contractor or worker does not have professional or occupational license. So this is a pretty big deal because you deal in HOA, a lot of HOA associations in the state of Florida. And this new bill would preclude them from enforcing their covenants in these regards. Now, we do expect, and to my knowledge, it has not happened yet, a potential challenge, because some of the attorneys are saying, well, there's a potential conflict with the contract clause of both the U.S. Constitution and the Florida Constitution, which basically says when parties enter into a contract, the state can't preclude the enforcement of that contract. And the HOA rules and regulations are considered to be a contract between the owners of the property and the HOA. And so we don't know whether this will get challenged up to the courts. For right now, it has not. And so it's going to be up to the HOAs whether they want to challenge it, who will be the first to offer a challenge. Now, during the Florida Realtors meetings this past week, there are two things that I always like to go to because they're always insightful. The first is the legal and professional standards update. And the second is Dr. Brad O'Connor, where he gives the state of real estate in Florida and talks about the trends that are taking place. Now, last year, I had the privilege of chairing the forms committee that was involved in doing all this. We touched 65 different forms. We actually revised 43, created 17 new, and we sunsetted 5. So the update, settlement, 39, the majority of them were because of the NAR settlement. Our committee made changes to 20 of them, and there were some statute changes that changed them. The FAR bar contract came out beginning of the year with version 7. The biggest change was to paragraph 9, and that was the closing costs. And that is the ability for title companies, closing companies, to charge both buyer and seller. Prior to this time, the picking party paid the closing services fee. Now, Under the new version of the contract, it is buyer and seller can be charged. I am going to limit my discussion on this. Anybody who's been around me knows that I have not been in favor of this change, but it was done, so we need to work with it. So if you're keeping track, there were two updates to the condos, the condo riders, one that came in October 1st, and then again in December 31st. So the December 31st one has got all the changes. This is the milestone inspection and structural integrity that has been updated in the condominium addendum and rider. This one is in regard to the seller's disclosure condominium. And these are the questions that have been added in regard to the milestone inspection and structural integrity reserve study. Highlighted below is the note that for further information, use the milestone inspection and structural integrity reserve study disclosure. So that was not on the list prior because it's referenced here, but we created a standalone form. Now, RE/MAX Alliance Group, a year or so ago, created a standard milestone inspection structural integrity disclosure. We led the way and created that form. And so if you're using that, that's fine. And now there is a new one that has come out by Florida Realtors. We put this together last year, and it has more detail because these 4 questions are not enough to really get into milestone and SIRS. So this is a much more detailed 1-page disclosure, and I would encourage you to use either ours or this new one. This new one has specific questions. Ours is a general disclosure about you need to investigate and be satisfied with what's going on as regard to milestone inspection and structural integrity reserve study. Condominium inspections and condo rider. We'll go through this quickly because we've been talking about it. This started based on the Champlain Towers collapse. That's a special session in May of 22. We started to make changes. Every legislative session since 2022, there have been modifications and tweaks to this provision. No one expects it to be rolled back, but this legislative session that will take place in March, they are already talking about 3.0, some changes and some revisions to it. But there is the requirement for the seller to disclose, and those requirements have now been put into the new rider. So owners have an obligation to get the summary report and disclose under milestone inspection. The association has an obligation to do a structural integrity report and make it available to the owners. And a turnover inspection report has to be done by a developer. So structural inspections are part of milestone inspection. It starts with visual, and if there's any deterioration present, it moves into testing to make sure that that building is structurally sound. The age of the building, if it's 30 years of age, and then every 10 years thereafter, or in some cases, 25 years of age and 10 years after. That 25 years of age, when it first came out, was based on a proximity to saltwater, Gulf or the Atlantic. It was modified in a version later on to say it's up to the municipalities to determine whether you're close enough to saltwater for it to be an issue. So we have 2 dates. The prior to July 1st of 2022, you needed to have the milestone inspection done by this past December 31st. if you became 30 years of age between July 1st of 22 and December 31st of 24, you got an extra year. And so coming at the end of this year, you are due for your milestone inspection report. So there are some buildings that fall in that 2-year window between the 2022 and 2024 that get an extra year. And law enforcement, local enforcement, municipalities can extend that date if the association goes to them and says, look, we've hired the engineer, they just can't get to it. They can extend it. And for those reasons, that's why there is the choice, which we're going to look at, where it's required, but it's not been done. So these are the 3 choices, and you're going to find these 3 choices in all 3 forms: milestone, structural integrity, turnover report. It's required and it's been done. It's not required at all. It's required, but it has not been completed. So the structural integrity reserve study, it's a budgeting tool. It's to look at future major improvements and replacements of the structural elements. Now, condominiums have been required to do reserve studies for many, many years, but these reserve studies are specific to the structural integrity of that condominium. So, within 45 days of it being completed, they must provide written notice to unit owners and the developer that it's been completed and is available to review, and a copy of it. Now, I heard at the meetings that some condominiums, both with the milestone and the SIRS, they're questioning or they're debating or they're saying, no, we don't agree with it. We need to get another one done. And so they're not providing it to the unit owners, which again complicates the process for us when we're trying to get copies of it to provide to a buyer who's looking to purchase in that property. So again, you've got the same three choices: required and it's been done, not required, or is required but has not been completed. The turnover inspection report. This is a new one for most of us, but it's prepared by a developer and it only deals with the new construction. But what's included in the turnover report are all the official records. There is a SIRS that is done, as well as all the required maintenance, what the condition of the property, the useful life, and the replacement costs in various categories. That goes into this turnover inspection report, and it is done by the developer, and it's done on new construction. And if you're selling new construction, then you need to pay attention to this. Any condominium where the developer turns over control on or after July 1st of 23. And the same three choices. There is the voidability right. This is similar to what we've always had. The buyer has the right to review them and a right to terminate the contract based on the review of the documents. And you have one section that says they receive them more than 3 days prior to executing the contract and therefore do not have voidability right, or they have not received them, and when they receive them, they will have a 3-day voidability right. The language for that mirrors very similar to what we're used to. Here's the website that you can go to, take a picture of it if you want more detailed explanation about the condominium inspections. Let's jump into the residential market update and outlook. And again, got quite a few slides. I'm going to go through them quickly, not belaboring them, but if you want a copy, let me know. So, closed sales of single-family homes. It's the worst that it's been since 2014. You'll notice 253,000. We have not been that low until we were at 240 back in 2014. So it was an off year, but not significantly off from the prior year, down 5,000. Not horrific. We obviously in 21, we had a boom year, and even COVID year 2020 and even 19 was not bad at all. So our sales have definitely dropped for last year, 1.9% year over year. By county, single family versus 23 to 24. In our marketplaces, we were not off that significantly. We had a 5% up here, which could be up in the Tampa market, a little bit north of Tampa. We've had, those areas are off a little bit more than some of the others. 24 versus 19. And again, we're down a fair amount. We're up here. This is Sarasota. Bradenton was up 10% on closed sales from 19 to 24 to 19, but most others were down some. Condos, another story. We all know that the condo market, because of all that's going on, has been hit harder than single family homes. We're off way back to 2010. We were not that low in condo sales since that time. So the condo market, yes, has taken a bigger hit, down 10.5% year over year. And again, this just looks at it by county. All along our coast, we are down. Only areas inland, and they would basically be where there's new construction. Their numbers were up. Versus 2019, yes, off a good bit. Tampa market, coastal line up there, down significant. This is down probably around Collier County. So yes, we know that they're down a good bit. Why? Well, mortgage rates is one of the big factors, and I've got a slide that'll show you some of that. Insurance rates, still a challenge. It's our Achilles heel. The hurricanes, Brad said that even though we had some major hurricanes last year, it disrupted the market initially, but the market's back going without long-term effect. Domestic in-migration has slowed. It certainly has not stopped. It has slowed. International demand is down to the lowest it's been in years. Job growth has slowed some, but Florida still leads the way. And our condo issues, we saw the numbers, how they are down. Interest rates. We had this, as I love, Brad O'Connor calls it the sugar high period. We had this period of time that was not like any other period of time almost in history, and where they were down so significantly, which drove sales crazy. But then we have started and continued to go up and down and are still at a relatively high number. He's still optimistic that we'll see 6% in this year, but not sure when. Home prices, the affordability crisis that we have. And the affordability crisis is twofold. One, we've seen the median price of a home go up steadily, and we've seen interest rates go up steadily. Together, those two things create a lack of affordability. When you are down here in 14, 16, and you're your P&I payments were roughly $1,000, under 1,500, and now you're up almost to $2,500 to $2,000 for the median priced house. We have doubled the cost of home ownership as far as monthly payments are concerned, and that's what's created the affordability crisis for us. The categories, the hurricanes, in each of the decades, he's listed the hurricanes and based on the category, and the 2000s had more, and certainly in the 40s they had more. In the 2010s, only 3. We got away off pretty easy. Already we're only at start of 25. We haven't hit hurricane season, so we're through 4 years of the hurricane season, and we've had 6 already compared to this 10-year mark. So we've had a few more hurricanes, and some of them have been a higher intensity. Here are hurricanes by categories 3, 4, and 5, the most problematic hurricanes for us. And you see, after only 4 years, we're comparable, well, 1 less than what we had in the whole 20s, 2000, 10-year period of time. So we're a little bit higher on the hurricanes, which is affecting us some, but we bounce back very quickly because they do an initial interruption and then we're back. One of the things that he was pointing out was the population. And you see how Florida's population has grown. So in all of these earlier years, when we had hurricanes, they were oftentimes in areas where there was no population. But as the population has increased, every hurricane is hitting and affecting more properties. The driver's license and looking at out of state, New York, we see the bell curve from right around the COVID period, post-COVID. It belled specifically New York. New York still leads the way as far as the influx of people, especially the New York City and the 5 boroughs. We get more people from New York than anywhere else, but we're still pretty consistent. It has slowed some, but you know, and who's the recipient of all of these? Well, the size of the circle will tell you our marketplace, we are getting more than the share of Florida as far as the transplants, the migration that's coming in by counties. Our marketplace way heads and shoulders above most, other than on the East Coast. These 3 areas, they beat us, but otherwise we're in a consistently high market for the inflow of people from other states. New listings. So this graph tells an incredible story. If you look at it, one of the things that you see on the internet is that the sky is falling because the inventory has skyrocketed so high that it's going to disrupt real estate. Okay, when you do a comparison this year, last year, 23, which was down, to 24, you see that we're at 9.5% increase. Sounds like a lot, but look at, we're below where we were in 22. We're below where we were in 21. We're a little bit higher than 20, but we're below 19, we're below 18, and then we're higher than these years. But 18, 19, 20, I mean, you know, we're not in this crisis of having so much inventory that prices are going to drop dramatically and the sky is falling. So don't buy into that hype. Look at the historical data, and we are not in any kind of crazy over listing market. That 9.5%. So new listings by counties, again, the East Coast, these areas here, yes, very high, but our marketplace, we're getting a lot of listings. And the old saying is those who list last. You want the listings. And some of you are saying, I got so many listings. They'll start to sell. Condominiums, we are higher on the condominiums. That's gone up a good bit. Not out of proportion to where we were in 21, a little bit higher than 20. But again, not crazy. It is 11.3%, so it's higher than the single families. And again, this shows by far the East Coast has way more condominium listings than we do on our coast. Way more. Active listing inventory, it's steadily gone up by county. Month supply. When it comes to condominiums, we have entered more of a buyer's market with condominiums. We are still more so in a seller's market, more of a tempered seller's market. If you look at the pink line, the standard is a balanced market is 5 to 6 months of inventory. We're just below that on single families, but good bit above it when it comes to condominiums. The time on market is obviously gone up, much higher for condominiums, but even for single family, it's higher than what it was down here. The percent of asked to close price has dropped. We plateaued. We were doing well over 100%. We're now down to that 94, 96% range, depending on if it's condos, single families. I love this chart too because it shows that prices are not dropping. As a matter of fact, we're up 1.2%. And I love this chart because since 2011, we did have prior to that some downward movement in prices. Prices have steadily gone up. They have never gone down. So median price by county, just showing our coastal markets, obviously down the Keys, it's much higher. Now, this one's very interesting. When you look at 24 versus 2019, look at the percentages that we've had in our marketplace. 78%, 73% in just those 5 years. 86%, 53, 63, 55, 81, 66%. Our marketplace, where our offices cover, have enjoyed tremendous appreciation. Townhouses, they've dropped. So there has been a price change downward of 4.5% of the median price on the townhouses. So again, by county, on the townhouses, we're lower price than down in the Keys and even on the East Coast. But comparison, 19 to 24, we've still seen great appreciation, not what the single families have shown, but we have still received great appreciation in the median price of the condos. Permits, just showing the dip that we had. And because of that dip, we have been behind in new construction and building enough units. So housing stock expansion since 19. Florida, well, the US is 6% expansion. Florida is 11% expansion, and we parallel 4 other states. Only 2 states, Iowa, Idaho, and Utah, are at 14%. So Florida is at the top as far as expanding housing stock. We've been building more than in many other parts of the country. Now, as far as specific areas in Florida, when you look at the top 50 metro areas, interesting, the Villages, 39%. They're building and going crazy. But Punta Gorda, 23%. Cape Coral, Fort Myers, 18%. Northport, Sarasota, Bradenton, 18%. So we've got, 4 in our marketplace, 4 areas in the REMAX Alliance Group marketplace that are the highest as far as the percentage of expansion of permits and new construction. The dollar volume. Obviously, we said sales are down, but I find this interesting. Even though the number of sales are down, we just got done looking at how we've seen such great appreciation in our markets. So in 2024, with less sales, we've done more dollar volume of business than the year before. And what do we paid compensation on? Compensation commissions are paid on dollar volume. So the dollar volume is up. So we're still doing okay, even though the number of sales are down. We had 2 years, 21 and 22, that beat last year. But other than that, last year, dollar volume was pretty good. 2.5% increase over the previous year. Condos, a little bit different story. We know that the sales are down in condos, and we're also seeing the values of the median price drop with condos. So we have not enjoyed the same thing as we have in single family as far as increasing the dollar volume of sales. And I think with everything we're going through condos, we're going to see this number be a little bit lower, but it's still higher than where we were in 2020. It just doesn't match the crazy years of 21, 22, 23. We're higher than, look at the look back period, all the way through 2008. We're higher than all those years. So it's not a dreary doom and gloom picture. Down 9.1%. So if you want more stats, you can find them at Sunbiz. At sunstats.floridarealtors.org. We also approved 2 public policy motions. One, that Florida Realtors supports legislation to cap limit look-back periods for substantial damage and substantial improvements. We know with the hurricanes and the 50% rule, and the 50% rule basically applies in the Florida Building Code to any type of damage. If you had a fire and you weren't in a flood zone and your property was damaged more than 50% of the building value, you would have to bring that building up to current Florida building codes. So it doesn't apply just in flood zones, but it does with FEMA for sure. In flood zones, that 50% rule applies. So when you add a look back period to that 50% rule, it looks back, let's say there's a 3-year look back period. Any permitted improvements that you did in that 3-year period, let's say you put new windows, new doors, new roof, and that cost $100,000, and your 50% rule limited you to $150,000 of improvements. Well, that $100,000 now reduces that $150,000 so that you can only do $50,000 of improvements. without bringing the property up to current standards, which could mean to elevate that building if it's in a flood zone. So we want to start looking at this and see how we can lobby, because that's affecting a lot of people's property. The second motion that was approved, that we support the preservation, protection of state parks and their natural resources, that it be our policy position to oppose development within state parks. So that's just for public policy. Make it a great day. Appreciate your hanging in there a few extra minutes.